1 Samuel chapter 13. The sin of Saul. Saul was years old when he became king and reigned 2 years over Israel. Saul chose 3,000 men of Israel. 2,000 were with him in Michmash and in the hills of Bethel, and 1,000 with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin. Saul sent the rest of the people away, every man to his home. Jonathan killed the Philistine governor in Gibeah, and the Philistines heard of this. Saul then blew the trumpet throughout the land, saying, "Let the Hebrews hear," and the news spread throughout Israel. Saul has killed the Philistine governor, and now Israel is at war with them. And they called everyone out to join Saul at Gilgal. The Philistine gathered to fight with Israel, 3,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, and troops as many as the sand on the seashore. They went up and encamped in Michmash, east of Bethaven. When the people of Israel saw that they were in trouble, they hid themselves in caves, in holes, in rocks, in tombs, and in cisterns. And some Hebrews crossed the fords of the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul was still at Gilgal, and all the people with him were afraid. He waited 7 days, the time appointed by Samuel. But Samuel did not arrive at Gilgal, and the people were beginning to disperse. So Saul said, "Bring me the burnt offering and the peace offerings as well." Saul then offered the burnt offering. He had just finished offering it when Samuel arrived. Saul went out to greet Samuel, who threw him this question, "What have you done?" Saul answered, "When I saw the people beginning to disperse because of your failure to arrive on time, and considering that the Philistines have mustered their forces at Michmash, I said to myself, the Philistines will launch their attack against me before I get the Lord's blessing, and so I decided to offer the burnt offerings." Samuel told Saul, "You have done a foolish thing by not obeying the command of the Lord your God, who would have established your rule forever. But now your kingship will not last, for the Lord has chosen someone else more pleasing to him, whom he has appointed to be commander over his people, because you have not done what the Lord commanded you." Samuel then left Gilgal and went on his way. Meanwhile, the rest of the people went up from Gilgal with Saul to join the warriors at Gibeah of Benjamin. Saul revived his men, numbering some 600. While Saul and his son Jonathan stayed in Gibeah of Benjamin with the men, the Philistines pitched camp in Michmash. Raiders came out of Philistine camp in 3 companies. One company turned to Ophrah, to the land of Shual, the other to Bethhoron, and the third to the border overlooking the valley of Zeboim toward the wilderness. The Israelites had no blacksmith anywhere in their land, for the Philistines did not want the Hebrews to make swords or spears. To have their plowshare, mattock, axe, or sickle sharpened, the Israelite had to go down to the Philistines, who would charge them 2/3 of a shekel for plowshares and mattocks, and 1/3 of a shekel for sharpening axes and setting goads. And so on the day of the battle, the Israelites had neither sword nor spear, only Saul and Jonathan had them. The Philistine raiders had moved on toward the pass of Michmash. 1 Samuel chapter 14. Jonathan's daring deed. One day Jonathan, son of Saul, said to his armor-bearer, "Let us go over to the Philistine garrison on the other side." Jonathan did not inform his father about this. Saul was at that time on the outskirts of Gibeah at Migron, under the pomegranate tree near the threshing floor, with about 600 men. Also with Saul was Ahijah, son of Ahitub, brother of Ichabod, son of Phinehas, son of Eli, priest of the Lord in Shiloh, and he was wearing the ephod to consult the Lord. Not even the soldiers knew that Jonathan had left them. The path through which Jonathan planned to go to reach the Philistine garrison was flanked on each side of a rocky crag, one called Boses, the other Sene. One of the crags was to the north in the direction of Michmash, the other to the south in the direction of Geba. Jonathan said to his arm-bearer, "Let us go over to the garrison of those uncircumcised fellows. It may be that the Lord would help us, for it is as easy for the Lord to give victory with a few men as with many." His armor-bearer replied, "Do whatever you think best. As for me, I follow and obey you." Jonathan said, "Look, we will draw near and show ourselves to those men. When they see us, if they cry out, 'Stay here,' and we shall come over to you, we shall stay quiet and go no further. But if they say, 'Come up to us,' we shall go up, because that will be a sign that the Lord has delivered them into our hands." When the two were seen by the Philistines, the latter exclaimed, "Look, Hebrews are coming out of their hiding places." And they challenged Jonathan and his shield-bearer, "Come over here and we will teach you a lesson." Jonathan then told his armor-bearer, "Follow me, for the Lord has delivered them into the hands of Israel." Then Jonathan crawled up on his hands and feet, his armor-bearer following him. The Philistine fell before Jonathan, and his armor-bearer finished them off. In that first laying by Jonathan and his armor-bearer, about 20 men lost their lives within half a furlong. Panic struck in the camp in the countryside, and the whole army, those in the garrison and even the band of raiders, were terrified. It was like an earthquake, and they were filled with the holy terror. Saul's watchmen in Gibeah of Benjamin saw the commotion in the enemy camp. The Philistines were running and scattering in all directions. Saul then told those who were around him, "Count our men and see who is missing." And they discovered that Jonathan and his armor-bearer were not with them. Saul ordered Ahijah, "Bring the ephod," because Ahijah had taken it with him. But when Saul was talking to the priest, the confusion in the Philistine camp increased. Saul then told the priest, "Withdraw your hand." Then Saul and his men marched into the battle. They found the Philistines in complete confusion, and the soldiers were striking each other with their swords. Moreover, the Hebrews who joined the Philistines turned around and sided with the Israelites under Saul and Jonathan. When the Israelites who were hiding in the hill country of Ephraim heard that the Philistines were fleeing, they came out from hiding and pursued them. And so the Lord delivered Israel that day. The battle extended beyond Beth-horon. Saul's oath. On that day, however, as the Israelites became weary, Saul took an oath, putting the people under the ban. "Cursed be the man who takes food before evening, before I have avenged myself on my enemies." Because of this oath, no one dared touch any food. As the men wandered into the forest, they saw honey on the ground, and although it was freely dripping from the honeycomb, no one tasted it for fear of the oath. But Jonathan, who had not heard of this oath, dipped the tip of the rod he was holding in the honeycomb and put it to his lips, and his eyes brightened. At this someone said, "Though the people were tired, your father bound them with this oath. Cursed be the man who takes food today." Then Jonathan said, "My father did you wrong. See how I have been fortified by tasting a little of this honey. If only our men had freely eaten today of the spoil of the enemies, the Philistines would have suffered an even greater defeat." Nevertheless, they pursued the Philistines all the way from Michmash to Aijalon. Then the people, extremely worn out, rushed to the spoils and took sheep, oxen, and calves, and after they had slaughtered them on the ground, they ate with the blood. Saul was told that the people were sinning against the Lord by eating with the blood. He said, "You have acted like pagan people. Roll a large stone here in front of me." Then he added, "Go around and tell the people to bring their oxen or their sheep to me. Slaughter them here and eat, but do not offend the Lord by eating with the blood." So that night everyone brought what he had of the spoils and slaughtered it there. Then Saul built an altar to the Lord, the first he ever built for him. Then Saul said, "Let us pursue and despoil the Philistines by night and finish them off by morning without leaving a single man alive." To this the people replied, "Do what you think is best." But the priest said, we must consult the Lord." So Saul consulted the Lord, "Shall I attack the Philistines? Will you deliver them into the hands of Israel?" But God did not answer him that day. Saul said, "Call all the army officers here. We must find out who is responsible for the sin that has been committed today. I swear before the Lord who has just saved Israel that he shall surely die, even if it happens to be my son Jonathan." No one answered Saul. He told the people, "Go stand on one side while I and my son Jonathan stand on the other." The people answered, "Do what you think is good." Then Saul said, "O Lord God of Israel, why did you not answer your servant this time? If it is my son Jonathan or I who have sinned, O Lord God of Israel, let the casting of lots show Urim. If it is your people Israel who have sinned, let it show Thummim." The lot cast pointed to Jonathan and Saul, not to the people. Saul then said, "Cast the lot between me and my son Jonathan." The lot singled out Jonathan. Saul then said to Jonathan, "Tell me what you have done." And Jonathan replied, "All I did was to taste a little honey from the tip of the rod that I dipped in the honeycomb. Am I to die for this?" Saul said, "May God strike me down if you are not put to death, Jonathan." But the people protested, "By no means shall Jonathan, who has brought this resounding victory to Israel, die. Not at all. By the Lord's life, not one hair of his head will fall, for he acted today with God's assistance." So the people rescued Jonathan from sure death. After that, Saul ceased to pursue the Philistines, and they withdrew to their own country. When Saul felt secure as king of Israel, he began okay,